Light pollution news, July 2026, Cosmovision is light pollution news, my friends. This episode, we have an important study on mosquitoes that you won't want to miss. And we also have an important study on eye damage and light that you probably don't want to miss either. And Haley, since we're being all sciencey, what does the science say about our understanding of all? Back with me this episode are the Columbia Soil and Water Conservation District's Michael Calhoun, Astronomer extraordinaire Amy Oliver, and Outreach Sidewalk Astronomer and Dark Sky Discovery Center's Mr. Ted Blank. Settle in, this is going to be a great one. Welcome to Light Pollution News. I'm your host, Bill McGinney. Each month I go out and fetch all of the news around this pretty big topic we got, which is light pollution. And then I bring on three of my favorite people to talk about it. Light Pollution News is a listener-supported show, and your support allows us to do that. Your support already covers all of our software needs. Your support already covers us be able to afford a great producer and editor like Caden. And I'm asking if you're so inclined to help us continue that progress, to momentum, and be able to have us fill two spots on this team. One of them is to be a guest coordinator, a guest scheduler. It's a piece that I just don't have the full time to be able to give it adequate attention. And I miss communication, and I lose, focus on getting some of the guests back on. And it is a job that requires a lot of attention, a lot of work. You need to really communicate with people and find the guests and do all that. That is a lot. And I unfortunately don't have the ability to do both, create this good show, the content you have here, and to also find the guests. So I'm hoping that we can continue to improve the show, and I'm going to need that from you, listener, supporter, to help us continue to go. Also, we want to grow social media. I think 2026, we have a solid basis for social media, but we can do more. And the only way we get there is by getting a hired hand. These two things are things I'm looking to grow as we continue through 2026, 2027. And that will directly depend on how much money we have coming in the door. And that's why first off, thank you if you're already a supporter. And if you do think this show is worth supporting, why not consider it? There are other ways you can help us support if you don't have the funds or the money, or you're opposed to, you just don't want to spend any money on the show. I get that. You can maybe help spread the word about the show, share episodes or share tidbits or social media, help that grow. And I appreciate you guys. Let's get to it. This episode, I'd like to welcome back Mr. Michael Calhoun. Michael is an environmental activist from up there in the Pacific Northwest. Just tell me how thankfully he has electric right now. I guess they're in fire season. I never thought about that being on the East Coast. It makes sense. You don't want to have the lines live when you have potential for fires. You're out there in Vernonia, Oregon. You're board chair for the Columbia Soil and Water Conservation District, past recipient of the Oregon Urban and Community Forestry Award from the Oregon Department of Forestry. Welcome back to the show, Mike.
Oh, thanks, Bill. It's great to be back.
You mentioned you were going to say something, I think, last episode.
Oh, sure. Well, just briefly, being a board member of the district, what we got going this summer now is retrofitting all the lights to be, if it's not dark sky compliant, at least it's the amber, the 1800 Kelvin. So all the lights are going to be matching that color. And what I'm trying to do, what I've noticed about being on a board, there can be, it depends, it's sort of a generational amnesia, because board members are not forever. You have a rotation, but getting it in writing. So that's what I'm trying to have, is that there's a policy in place. So no matter who's board members in the years to come, this district will always be a dark sky compliant district, which is part of our mission, conservation. So if you want generational, get it in writing.
And are you saying that because the district doesn't, I guess you put in a bylaws, like how's that working? Where in the writing is that going?
Exactly. Because if you don't have something documented, 20 years from now, they're going to wonder, well, the bulb's out, let's change it. And there's no thought, there's no conversation, because people aren't going to look at meeting minutes from years ago. They look at your current policy. So that's what's important is keeping that. So through the years, it'll always remain.
Okay. Well, next up, I want to reintroduce Amy Oliver. And Amy is pretty much the most impressively alert person I've met for having so many great activities you're involved in. Amy, do you just want to redo your spiel here? I feel like that'll be probably the best course to go.
Sure. I am a coffee drinker extraordinaire. I think we've established that Black as a dark night sky with no light pollution around it. The night sky actually isn't black, so that's a misnomer. But
are you coffee connoisseur or coffee
loyalist? I am a loyalist to some very specific coffee from Puerto Rico.
Oh, great. There you go. It's funny when you find a niche. I'm a big coffee fan too. This is why I ask. If you find your niche, stay with it.
Yeah, in a previous life, when I lived in Salt Lake City, Utah, I was very loyal to raw bean coffee. Shout out to the Raw Bean Coffee Company in Salt Lake City. Or I guess Mill Creek.
No, throw you off there.
I know you're like, you didn't know you were doing a commercial today for coffee. But so in my daytime life, in my, I guess my Superman side, not my Clark Kent side, I am the public affairs officer and the head of education and outreach, as well as the light pollution scientist for the Fred Lawrence Whipple Observatory, which is the largest field site of the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory and a part of the Center for Astrophysics, Harvard and Smithsonian, where I'm also the principal investigator of Dark Sky Net, which is a binational light pollution monitoring network, and Project Glowworm, which is studying unexpected bioluminescence elevations above 8,000 feet. And I also am a Sky Nights presenter for the University of Arizona's Mount Lemmon Sky Center. I chair the Tucson-Pima County Outdoor Lighting Code Committee, which is the one that everybody's watching all the time because we're a very big code and also changing it now. So it's a really big deal. I'm a fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society for my work in light pollution, and just earlier this year was named as one of the 25 most influential people in the lighting industry.
I want to ask you about the code change now. Are there any obstacles or any challenges you're experiencing, or is it maybe a little easier now with so much? I mean, this idea, this term light pollution is a term of sky glow is pretty well saturated in society. I've noticed, I have people who I never would have thought in my wildest dreams that they already know what this is. Now, it doesn't mean they want to do anything about it or anything, but they know the terminology.
You've asked a really interesting question because we talked in the last episode, so I'm going to back up and talk about that a little bit, about education and about building relationships and balancing the needs of the community with the needs of a dark sky. And that is an ongoing consideration. And I don't want to say challenge, it's a consideration, because astronomy and other industries that require dark skies are not the only industries that exist. And so helping those industries find a way to fit in, particularly in a community like Tucson and the surrounding Pima County region that have an ethos toward dark sky. Yeah, it's our collective experience in our space. People move to Tucson and Pima County in Arizona for the dark sky experience. They move here because we have dark skies. We can see the Milky Way. We have these beautiful outdoors. We have warmer temperatures. So you can go enjoy these things most of the year. We have warmer temperatures. We get snow. But so there's this ethos, and then a business wants to come in and access this community. So how do we help them to adopt this ethos, particularly if their brand ethos doesn't align with that, and help them come in, and then help the developers and the contractors and the building construction workers who are all working with them on this project to meet that ethos? How do you get a large box chain to follow that and live within the community so that you can have both of those things and balance that? How do you balance the perceptions about low public safety with a dark sky? How do you all of these different things that we have to consider, and we need to hear everyone because we all have to coexist. And so that is not a challenge. I look at things that other people say are a challenge as an opportunity for us to grow and to think out of the box and to become innovators. And we talk to our committee, talks to the lighting industry, and we ask them, how can you get more creative? We talk to the sign industry. How can you get more creative? Because we don't just say no, we say, how can we creatively problem solve together?
Amy, you bring up a really good point here, because regulation is often looked at, people look at it and say, oh, this is restrictive, it harms business, harms industry or whatnot. But in actuality, we look at cars, and regulation has made cars incredibly innovative with your fuel economy and for any number of ways. And I'm assuming something like this would make signage and all this stuff incredibly innovative.
Incredibly, when the industries are ready to go that way, and they are starting to go that way, the lighting industry in particular, global lighting industry, they are very aware of light pollution. They are working very hard. Lighting designers work incredibly hard to find the best ways to light meaningfully, because lighting is about more than just putting a light bulb in a space, right? It's an architectural thing. It's an emotional thing. It's very important to everything that you build. It's not, a lot of times we take that for granted. So if you're not in that industry or you're not in architecture, you don't think about how the lighting can completely change a space. But if you've ever worked in a corporate office, I mean, you know how fluorescent lights can make you feel. So these guys are trying to change that, right? So we think about all of those things pretty consistently across the board. And that's really what we're trying to do together, is innovate across all of those spaces. But that takes everyone having a really open mind, and it takes time to do those things. Our code is catching up to the technology so that we can help other people innovate.
Good luck. You're doing God's work. That's the best way to put it.
We are actually, I'm going to tell you the really funny thing, because you asked if there are challenges. And I feel like everyone deserves a good laugh in this space, where one of the things we are consistently coming back to is festoon lighting. Do you guys know what festoon lighting is?
Never heard of it.
So it's the long strings of the large light bulbs that look like, old 50-watt light bulbs that hang outside in restaurants. And so those are unshielded lighting, right? So our opportunity is to figure out, how do we shield those? So how do we allow, or not really allow, but accept that restaurants are going to use those to create an ambiance in their space, and then also shield them so that they are not brightening the night sky. And that's the opportunity for creativity for your listeners right now. Help us figure out how we make those look cute with a hat on.
There you go. I wouldn't have thought that those lights are as much a problem as, like, driving around, around here at night. So much of it is just buildings that put up lights for their parking lot, for their walkway, for the tree that they decided, if it needs to be lit up, like, a major league ballpark. So much of that is that. And when I see one of these festoon lights, it looks pretty tame.
You might think that you're looking at one light bulb, right? And you're not considering all of them together. And so you've got 500 of these in an outside courtyard, and then you have 500 restaurants that have 500 of these in an outside courtyard, and that starts to add up pretty quick. And then, of course, you were talking about the architectural lighting for plants, right? And that's an issue.
I wish this was architectural lighting. Yeah, I hear it. Yeah. I mean, this wasn't architecture. These are just big floodlights that are just misaimed, and they hit a plant.
Oh, misaimed to hit a plant. That's interesting. That's a whole episode of conversations about plants and their need for REM sleep and CAM photosynthesis and all sorts of things. And then also shining into the night sky. But of course, that architectural lighting you're talking about with parking lots, a lot of that is changing, and a significant number of at least modern parking lot lighting is full cutoff. So that side of the industry is changing quite rapidly, and they are innovating really well.
Great to hear. Well, if anyone has any suggestions, Amy's contact information will be here towards the end of the show. You could hear her last show, shoot her over a line, maybe an image, maybe you can mock it up. I want to move over to our third guest today, Mr. Ted Blank. And Ted, you have your hands in many different things as well, doing a lot of outreach, amateur astronomy, NASA Solar System Ambassador, just like Amy, right? You also have done cruise ships and Grand Canyon Star Party just for doing outreach, which I'm pretty jealous about. That's pretty great. That's a pretty honorable invitation for being someone who's essentially an amateur, and you get to go on a cruise ship and actually talk about it. You were past president of New Hampshire Astronomical Society, and now you have this awesome project, this project I've been reading about for at least a year, the International Dark Sky Discovery Center. Why don't you tell us about that?
Thanks. It's a passion that we've worked on now for 10 years. It's a 23,000 square foot facility dedicated to education for the public. We currently have open the observatory wing, I guess you'd call it, with an outdoor viewing terrace. Celestron donated 4 11-inch telescopes, portable on wheels. And in the observatory, we have a plane wave CDK 700 that we are using for public outreach, as well as asteroid occultation measurements and other science. And we're working with ASU to enable them to let their graduate students and undergrads use this telescope either remotely or in person, because many students of astronomy don't get their chance to get their hands on actual equipment during their undergraduate or graduate events. COVID interrupted our fundraising, but we were able to resume. So we finished the building and the part of the building that includes the observatory. But in the rest of the building, which we just signed a contract for, and construction will actually start tomorrow on the rest of the 4/5 of the inside of the building, we will have a 150-seat theater, a planetarium with a tilted dome and 66 seats in there, an Einstein exploration station where the people, kids, and the public can come in and play with light, learn about refraction, reflection, spectral analysis, and so on. But I think the crowning jewel of it is what we call the Night Sky Exhibit Hall. We've worked with a company in Minnesota, Split Rock Studios, to design 85 exhibits that take the visitor on a journey through the history of artificial light at night, from campfires and kerosene lanterns all the way up to blue LEDs and what will follow them. And when you walk through this exhibit hall and you complete your exhibit and you see some of the simple things you can do to help control outdoor lighting at night, and you take our cool quiz, every time you get a right answer, the Bortle scale on a big screen in front of you gets better and better and better. And if you get 9 correct answers in a row, you go all the way from Bortle 1 to Bortle 9 all the way to Bortle 1, and you see this beautiful Milky Way image as a thank you for listening and learning about as you go through. We've got exhibits we've got a cool interactive game about fireflies. We haven't mentioned fireflies yet, but we have them in Arizona. And we're concerned, of course, that as the sky gets brighter, firefly mating is dependent on the females being able to see the flashing of the males flying overhead. And as the skies at night get brighter and brighter, the females have a hard time seeing the male flashes. And at some point, the population can collapse. They have to lay eggs every year to have a new crop of fireflies. Anyway, so we've got this cool game where you try to tap a male firefly on a touch screen whose flash pattern matches the female flash pattern. And as the sky gets brighter and brighter, you as a visitor will learn how hard it is to be a firefly in light polluted skies. And so failure is the option here. That's the goal, to have you fail to learn how hard it is on light polluted skies. Anyway, lots and lots of exhibits like that, interactive exhibits, lots of displays. And that will begin construction, as I said, tomorrow. The exhibits are all designed and going to be built shortly. And we're now trying to manage the construction schedule for all of these people who want to build these different things in the same place at the same time, but can't do that. So that's it. We're pretty excited about it, and we'll do our best to manage that. We should open sometime early next year.
That's really exciting. And this is in Fountain Hills, Arizona.
Fountain Hills, Arizona.
And if you're someone like me who's like, where the heck is Fountain Hills, Arizona? Where is that?
Think Scottsdale.
Okay.
We're just to the east of Scottsdale, around behind the McDowell Mountains. So we are a dark sky community since 2018. We maintain that every year by doing our educational outreach to the community and by submitting our report to Dark Sky International. And we have, in March every year, the biggest and best Dark Sky Festival in Arizona. Last March, we had 3,000 people show up. Wow. We had an astronaut and a firefly expert from Tucumcari in Arizona as our 2 keynote speakers. And we have exhibitors from every dark sky organization and park and community that we can snag to come and talk to us. We fill up the whole community center for 5 hours. And then we have a giant star party afterwards last year we had 17 telescopes. And we still had long lines, of course. But we celebrate our dark sky status that way. And hopefully when we open next year, we'll get a big, exciting throng of people coming to our grand opening.
First off, yes, definitely are commending you guys and wishing you guys the best of luck. And I can't wait to see that open. I Hopefully you can stop by sometime in the near future and check it out. Sounds exciting. It sounds like a great spot. You're talking about fireflies, and one of my favorite experiences, it was an accidental experience, happened at camp down where it was like dogs only in this one state park. It's up in north central PA. The light to the bathroom, for whatever reason, was off. And of course, they put the dog camping like by the bathroom. So you're, they put you in a little corner over there. So you have a stream and then you have a forest in the distance. It had the Milky Way cutting down to the forest. And then it had fireflies going full blast until that light came on around midnight. And it was spectacular. And that sense of wonder, that's kind of a great way to kind of weave into this first article I have here. A sense of wonder is very magical. In the past, we discussed a 2024 study in Scientific Reports that showed a correlation between low levels of light pollution and deep sense of wonder. Before that was a 2018 study from Journal of Environmental Psychology that found a correlation between night sky brightness and decreased moods when using a virtual reality simulation of national parks' nighttime skies. And then this spring, we had a new paper out from People in Nature from the British Ecological Society that found that all really does inspire. A team looked at 528 participants between 8 to 80 and to see how they observed the 2024 solar eclipse. Those who were on the path of totality noted, unsurprisingly, significant higher levels of awe than those who weren't on the path of totality. The team found that moments of awe paired with scientific observations opened up to an enhanced sense of scientific identity and belonging. The people who were being studied here were actual individuals who were tracking animal behavior during that time. So they're already science oriented into sciences. They have science background, but they had an even more enhanced sense of that science identity and belonging when they experienced that full totality. You guys do outreach. You see this, you see people who in theory make that connection.
Mm-hmm. I think we all do see that. I call that the sound of wonder or the sound of awe. And when I show someone, I'm going to tell you guys a cute little story from Wednesday night. So we're in June. We're Wednesday. What was that? The 18th of June, or maybe it was early Thursday morning. 2 postdocs from the Center for Astrophysics, Harvard and Smithsonian, standing on our mountain, who had never seen the Milky Way because they're from Boston, Massachusetts. And we took them outside and we showed them the Milky Way with their eyes, and we strapped their cell phones to a tripod and we helped them take a picture, and they make the sound. And the sound goes, and by the way, this is a well-established sound in medical science, by the way. And we're just learning now how to apply it to the other senses of wonder and the other senses in the human body. But it's a similar sound to what a person makes when they hold a newborn child for the first time. That creates the changes in your alpha and beta waves that creates a human connection. And this is all deeply connected to something in certain circles of astronomy education that we call Cosmovision, which is your sense of belonging to yourself, your family, your community, your broader nation, and to the universe. And so when people start to feel these things and they realize, oh, the sky is for me. The sky is for everyone. This is something I can care about. It's something that belongs to me, and I belong to this. And it dramatically changes people. And there's good evidence that if someone wanted to get really creative out here and start studying this, you might find that people's brainwaves are changing, or they are changing at a cellular level over time as they have these experiences. It's, again, well documented in medical science that people change, and that when they go out into simply nature, they physically change. They experience a physical change. The night sky can do the same thing. We just haven't studied it, to my knowledge. If Ted or Michael are aware of somewhere someone has already done this, please correct me. But it's pretty remarkable that this is happening and that we're also starting to notice it. So, but, so we've got these lead scientists on projects, but that are starting to notice this, and it's worldwide. And when you get a bunch of us in a room together, we go, yeah, I've been starting to notate that. I have a little notebook that when someone makes that sound, I put their name down and I go, check, we got one more.
It really is something, right? Like I remember, again, I just got a lot. Obviously, I'm here because I have a lot of good memories about this stuff, and I, have a lot of good experiences. One of them was NASA used to fund city skies. And I don't know if it was across the nation or whatnot, but here we had Derek Pitts, who was chief astronomer at Franklin Institute, and he would get funding to be able to set these up with the community. And I remember going to North Philly, which is a dense, bright area. It's a dense part of the city out by Temple University. And you can maybe make out, then it was, about 10, 16 years ago, you could maybe make out 15 stars. One of them was Capella. And I just had a little refractor and I showed kids in a park, a little, just a square. And I showed them just the only thing I could see. And they were fighting over seeing the telescope. And they were really questioned. They're like, had all these questions and everything. And that's what you said, the sky's for all of us. And I wonder if, that sense of awe, right? Like it just is, it's not pervasive unless someone takes you to it.
Or hands you a pair of binoculars, or like you did a telescope. By the way, Philly is just rife with street astronomers. I just love that so much because it's such a densely packed metropolis, but I'm fully aware of the Philly moon men who are out there. My friend, another man named Bill, who now lives in Europe, but him and his brother are the Philly moon men together, and they run all over the place in Philadelphia, handing people binoculars. So Bill and I were in Santiago, Chile together, and he's just running around a park handing strangers binoculars, and he doesn't speak Spanish, and he did not care. We went to San Pedro de Atacama, and he stood outside of a bar handing people binoculars. And so it's amazing the dedication I'm seeing come out of Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not shocked.
I love it. I just love it because I hear about it all the time. I know someone else from Pennsylvania in the same general area, and you guys are really dedicated to the night sky, even though there's a lot of light pollution there. And I think that speaks to that sort of inspiration and that wonder, because you guys are searching for it constantly and helping other people search for it and connect with even that one of 15 stars. So,
everyone has awe when they see Saturn, right?
Yeah.
I still do. It's always impressive.
I spent 8 weeks at the Grand Canyon a couple of years ago on a program they called Astronomy Volunteer in the Park. So we would use telescopes that they had up at Grand Canyon, bring them out 4 nights a week for the public, and they would come to a parking lot and do observing. And one of the things we were asked to do was to put a tape recorder or a little digital recorder underneath our telescope to record those moments of the sound of wonder that Amy just talked about. And the ranger wanted to make sure that when he proposed funding for this project in the future, he would be able to play back edited clips of people's reaction to seeing Saturn, and in that case, or something else. And we had hundreds and hundreds of these examples of that exact thing that you talked about. And it was really heartwarming to hear people and to get a record in the dark. They had no idea they were being recorded or who they were, no identities, but just their voices. And it was fantastic.
I didn't know this was a thing. Sound of Wonder is I've been missing out this whole time.
Beautiful. It's that it's happening and we don't know each other is doing it. Because I'm just hearing this for the first time from Ted. And I'm like, it reminds me of 2017 eclipse. I had a little girl tell me she didn't even want to be there. And she had no interest in it at all. The memory I retain the very most, and the thing I love the most, is I'm taking a video of totality, and it's not even I'm a terrible videographer, right? So the video is awful, but you hear this little girl in the background screaming totality, and she's so excited. And then after, I remember her coming up and telling me, oh, I do care about this. Maybe instead of being a ballerina, I want to be an astronomer. And it changes everything. So this one moment, and you can hear her entire view of the sky change in this one word she's screaming into nowhere.
Yeah.
For the lighting, the project that I had worked on, trying to replace the downtown corridor lights, they're currently a 5,000 Kelvin rating. I was trying to get them down to 2,200, the amber color, and had a lot of letters of support. But what was nice about in the letters was how the amber colored lights made people feel. So not only the sky itself, but how the lighting and the mood affects people. Because I thought they were going to, I didn't know what the letters were going to say. And then when I read each one of them, and this is how it makes me feel as I drive through downtown at night. So feeling is an incredibly important component to all of this work that's being done.
That's I think we hit on it. It is very underrated piece of this puzzle. Well, Amy, while I have you here, I want to ask this because there seems to be concern about light pollution down in the Atacama Desert. And on the face of it, it looks kind of like science and industry trying to figure themselves out. You may recall AS Andes project, which attempted to install hydrogen energy, like a mega plant within 7 miles of the Very Large Telescope. Thankfully, better minds prevailed there. However, the story didn't end. Apparently, there's some growing glow on the horizon, and it stems from the region's traditional approach to dealing with light pollution based on a 1979 rule that allowed for light near observatories, provided it didn't exceed 10% of the natural background levels, as measured at 45 degrees above the horizon. As it turns out, the rule was apparently, by the author's admission, an arbitrary creation and has created problem that's for our more sensitive gear and equipment that we're using these days to study the stars. So in response, organizations like the International Astronomical Union are calling for lowering that threshold to 1% above the natural background levels. You've been down there. Is this something that only technology can see, or is this something that as a person you've noticed?
This particular thing you're talking about, I have not seen myself because I actually have not been to the location in the Atacama Desert where the Very Large Telescope is located. The Atacama Desert is a very large place. Extraordinary. I mean, and consider that Chile, when you're talking about light pollution there, Chile is also home to about 50% of the world's, or maybe slightly more than that, 50% of the world's large scale astronomy observatories, right? So when you talk to an astronomer and you say, have you seen this? You're like, well, I mean, I've been to these 7, but not these 85 that are there.
I took it that it wasn't necessarily the Very Large Telescope. It was actually the area around. I'm not sure which area. I'm sure, as you said, it's a very vast area.
Yeah, well, it's within 7 miles of the Very Large Telescope. The Atacama Desert is substantially larger, than that. So when you're talking about that, you have to consider where someone has been. So I have not seen that, but I do see light pollution in the Atacama Desert, and it's definitely affecting the background atmospheric light. Still way better than places we have in the United States. Chile is by far the best place to do astronomy in the world. We all still know that. That's why we're all building telescopes there. These numbers, when you say arbitrary numbers, right, they're based on the best information they had at the time. And they had to create with a projection for the future, not knowing how far technology would go in lighting, in energy production, in telescope technology, in astronomical software. And so everyone is backtracking now and trying to refigure out that math. That's not just happening in Chile. That's the Tucson-Pima County Outdoor Lighting Code, right? So when that thing was written for the very first time before I was born, they didn't know what I was going to be dealing with today. A few of the guys involved in that are still alive today, and I can't go up to them and say, what were you thinking? Because they were using the very best information that they had at the time, the projections they had at the time. Now it's up to me to figure out, how do I balance what they had and what they changed over time with what we now need today and what we're going to need for the next 5 to 10 years? And how do we set ourselves up with success? So that's going to be true in Chile as well. And as the population grows and our needs on Earth grow for energy production and energy output, that's something we're going to be dealing with in every region of the world. So I hate to say buckle up, but light pollution scientists and advocates and educators need to be paying attention to this all over the world and take that information. I use information I learned in Chile about mining operations and how they work with observatories to inform and educate here in the United States. And then take that, and someone else in Africa takes that from me and says, oh, okay, now you've put these 2 things together. I can use it over here. And we add and refine together. So this is, something I can't really speak to entirely intelligently, but to tell you that, yeah, I mean, the astronomers who are seeing that it's a problem and saying what we did. How long ago is 1979?
I mean, yeah, it's quite
Sorry, almost 50 years, right?
47 years or so.
Yeah, so it's 47 years ago. And that's a long time for technology to change and change and change. And that's an exponential amount of change that we now have to look at and say, this worked then, it doesn't work now. It probably would have been helpful if we'd have been changing it along the way, but we didn't know. And so now we have the correct data to understand, and we'll go back and work on it now.
Yeah, and I feel like they wouldn't have been able to foresee technology that will be coming down.
No, we can't. I mean, there are some projects Ted's probably back there laughing at me because, things like James Webb Space Telescope were first designed and proposed. What that was the 1980s, I think, when James Webb was first proposed as an idea. And we know that as NASA ambassadors, and it just barely came out. So sometimes we know where the technology is headed. We just don't know what path or what implements we're going to take to get there. So we have a dream, but we don't know how sensitive something is going to be until the rest of the technology catches up.
Amy mentioned the little girl who yelled totality and was so excited. Any of your listeners who might be interested in looking at the eclipses this year or next year, you may be getting advertising suggesting that if you go to a place that has 93 or 95% coverage, it'll be 93 or 95% as good as totality. But the difference between totality and that has been described as the difference between being the bridesmaid and the bride. Or bringing your kids as far as the Disney World parking lot and then turning around and going home. So don't be fooled, anybody who
I'm going to tell you, I am on a cruise ship for that eclipse. And a number of cruise lines accidentally had put themselves outside of the path of totality. And they have all been working to correct it. I mean, all to their credit that they've been told by astronomers and by their guests, and they have all been working very hard to correct that because they've been told it is not the same. 99.999999999% is not 100%. And you have to be at 100%. You have to be there. And so, yeah, if you want that sense of wonder from an eclipse, it needs to be the whole thing. It's diamond ring or bust.
Well, we're going to switch gears here over to health. Got this article here from Gero Science. The team asked the question, does high intensity evening light exposure correlate to age-related eye diseases? They had 82,826 UK biobank participants wear a light sensor on a risk for 7 consecutive days, sometime between 2013 and 2015. And the team tracked new cases of macular degeneration, cataracts, and glaucoma over a median follow-up period of around 8 years. So the folks in the top 10% of evening light exposure, namely those regularly exposed to light above roughly 1,000 lux between 8 p.m. to 11:30 p.m., showed 31% higher odds of macular degeneration and an 18% higher odds of cataracts and 47% higher odds of primary open-angle glaucoma. So they also found that if you had hours above 2,250 lux, which is a pretty good spread of light, it was linked to a 10% bump in overall eye disease risk. Authors noted that 7-day exposure may not reflect the long-term habits and that the sensors were worn on a wrist rather than near the eye, both of which they believe probably pushed the hazard ratios towards the conservative side. So the study uses lux opposed to lumens because here they want to see how much light was hitting the eyes. Also, this fits in with how the medical side does dose response thresholds. They look at lux. You can look at a standard office lighting being somewhere between 300 500 lux. It's usually kind of a tracking on the medical side. But I believe most importantly, this is the first article I've seen here on this show that seriously tried to tackle the question of eye damage to extreme light. You can kind of feel this experience. You guys were talking about feelings before. When I see some of these bright floodlights at night, your eye is going from being kind of, I don't want to say like nighttime adapted, but it's somewhere in the middle. And then you have this super bright white LED floodlight and it hits your eye. And it really just, you can feel it, right? You can actually feel that pain. At least I can. I don't know if maybe you guys can't. What do you guys think? I mean, this is the first study I've seen on this one, but do we think this is the path? This is going to be a continuing issue?
First, I want to say to all of your listeners, what a great reason to become an astronomer. So you are in the dark at night. There are no lights on you. But second, so when I'm teaching about light pollution, And honestly, when I'm talking about light pollution and how it impacts plants, I ask people directly, if I took a big bright flashlight and shined it in your face at 2 o'clock in the morning, how would you feel? That was when I'm talking about you lighting your plants at night. And by the way, so I don't want to expound on this for a long time, and I really want to bring Michael into this discussion, but I gave a TED talk on this in 2024. So I highly encourage people to look that up, right? About, by the way, fireflies, Ted. It's about the Firefly Nightclub and about plants needing their sleep, and all tying back into light pollution. So I am unsurprised that artificial light is having a negative impact on human cells of any kind, because we also need REM sleep. Your eyes need to close for their own health. They need rest. If you are being exposed to high intensity anything, we know that that's a problem. It's the same as if you eat too many carrots, you're going to turn orange eventually. Too much of anything, we have found through scientific research, is bad. Too much water. We know if you jump in a pool and you open your mouth, what happens, right? So taking in too much water at a time, taking in too much bright light, all of these things have similar threads to them. And so I am unsurprised to hear this. My reaction, no one could see me, but I went, ugh. And so I think we are going to see more studies on this, in particular because other areas of science have already been studying the biological impacts of artificial light, particularly, at night or over long periods of time. So how has this been impacting plants and animals? And now we are looking at human biology. And so I think this is a great place for Michael to jump in, because he knows an awful lot about this subject in terms of conservation and how that research can be applied across the full threshold to human biology.
Well, I always encourage the listeners, it's disheartening to hear this. And of course, because we are animals ourselves. And there's several studies out there people can take a look where trees that are unfortunate enough to be under a street light, for example, 24 hours a day. The chlorophyll, everything changes. So then that affects the insects. And because the insects are affected, then the birds are affected. So there's a chain reaction here. And earlier in our conversation, we'd also talked about the inundation of technology. And there's a lot of nuance with LED bulbs that, branded as energy efficient, but how do they dispel light? And then the color, CRI, color rendering index. And, this is, as you mentioned, Amy, earlier, the importance of empowering people with information of knowledge. And it's amazing for an example, for a tree that's affected, like I just mentioned, through the insects, through the birds, et cetera. It's in our world, how much policy affects everything and and ripple effects from there. If you had a policy where you don't have to have streetlights, let's say in a park that has hours where they're closed anyway, why do you need 24-hour lights? And then what color are they? So I'm always amazed at the ripple effect that are where our society is going and the technology that we're using. So I encourage folks to, if it's something that you're concerned about, to look into it, see what you can do, whether that's a policy or just a change of technology of the streetlights that are making this effect. But when it comes to human health, I am curious where this is going to go in the decades to come. What's to become of us becoming more and more under lights for 24 hours, and not just lights in general, the type of lights, the color, the technology. So I can't say I'm eager to find out what happens, but I am curious where this is going to lead. But so far, it's not looking good.
Well, we were talking about ecology here, and there were three major pieces that came through this month. Alpha Ecology looked at how white LED street lights affected monarch caterpillars and their interaction with two types of milkweed. The test ran for 2 years and found that over that span, the caterpillars exposed to streetlights grew 16% faster, and subsequently, butterflies developed under lighting conditions were 8% heavier. They didn't really go into any further details on that. It was just looking at some of the characteristics between the experimental group and the control group, which is non-lit. This one here in Africa, they had a really interesting study that looked at water holes, how light can change the dynamic of mammal activity. Via conservation science and practice, the team set up solar-powered 24-watt LED. They're white LED floodlights at 6 sites and kept 6 control unlit sites. They captured 12,000 animal detections between lit and unlit sites. Their results found that lighting overall had no effect on the frequency of waterhole visits by mammals. However, a couple of species stood out. Gemsbucks, the antelope group, I think that's how you say it. Probably should have looked that up. Oh well, here we are. Spent more time at lit waterholes, and they doubled their visitation of lit waterholes over the unlit ones. And then take the stat. In the dark, the Gemsbucks stayed at a watering hole for 4.8 minutes per visit, but in the light, they enjoyed a leisurely 11 minutes of just hanging out, chatting with their friends, drinking by the watering hole. Then we have conversely, lions said no to the light, and they shifted their activity to dark watering holes, an activity increase of 16%, and they decreased their activity at lit water holes by 25%. It's kind of similar activity that we see here between mule deers and pumas and bobcats in California. Deer tended to move towards the light, if not for any other reason, but because light deterred cat activity, or maybe people were there, which might have deterred cat activity as well.
Yeah, this is going on at the Grand Canyon as we speak. If you've ever been up there and noticed herds of elk walking around Grand Canyon Village, it is exactly because the mountain lions that prey on the elk want nothing to do with humans, and they will stay far, far away. And the elk that have wandered in to Grand Canyon Village and the visitor center area have discovered that if they act like people, the mountain lions are nowhere near them. And so it's actually becoming a problem. They're becoming totally habituated to people. There are a lot more people-elk interactions. These are big animals, and especially the males with their big antlers. So the Grand Canyon has actually brought in a new ranger named Blue. He's got 4 legs, and they don't like to actually harry the elk too much, but Blue, the dog, is actually brought around to bark at them and try to encourage them to stay away from the parts of the park where people are actually there. Don't walk through the parking lots. Stay in the trees, you'll be fine. But don't walk between the cars. It gets people upset.
That's a problem. Yeah. Well, here we are. We're almost through the show. I want to give you guys a chance to plug yourselves. I have one more really good ecology article I want to talk about right after this, but let's give you guys a chance. Amy, I know you got to hit a schedule. So how about you tell us where we can find you again?
All right. Yeah. Anybody looking to find me or learn more about the work that I'm doing, my @handle on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram is the same everywhere. It's @nerdyastronomer. So that's the word nerdy and the word astronomer just mushed together. Really easy to find. I also work for Whipple Observatory. That @handle is the same everywhere, which is @Whipple Observatory. And I really encourage people to come and visit us. We are a visitable research observatory, not during monsoon season because it rains a lot and nobody wants to come and get rained out of everything fun to do at our location. But if you're coming to the Tucson area, or even if you're not, get over here and check it out.
Excellent. Ted, how can people find out about what you're up to?
Well, the best way would be to come to our website, darkskycenter.org, where you can learn about the International Dark Sky Discovery Center and our progress. We hope to be opening early next year. And for my citizen science friends who are interested in doing asteroid research, occultations.org is our website, where you can use telescope equipment you already own to make a serious contribution to solar system science by studying asteroids from the safety of your backyard, or if your backyard isn't safe, somebody else's backyard.
There you go. All right, Michael, where can people learn more about things you're into?
Well, I mentioned I enjoy networking with people and learning from each other. So LinkedIn is a big, major connection for me. So Michael Calhoun, Vernonia, Oregon, LinkedIn. And then I have a Facebook page, Michael Calhoun for Columbus Soil and Water Conservation District. And there I post a lot of environmental articles.
Well, we're talking about ecology earlier, and this is one that really jumped out. Man, if you're doing outreach, this is one you want to keep in your back pocket, because I don't know how you feel about mosquitoes, but I'm not a big fan. I don't think you're going to find many people who are. So just in time for your summer festivities here in the Northern Hemisphere, researchers who published in the Journal of Applied Ecology studied the northern house mosquito. This mosquito is evidently the primary carrier of the West Nile virus in the northern U.S., and they ran a study for 2 autumn seasons, 2022 and 2023, assessing 25 sites around Columbus, Ohio. Each site held 2 observational enclosures. First one was placed near existing outdoor lighting fixtures, and the second one was placed at a dark spot on the property. The light color tended to be somewhere around 2,700 to 3,000 Kelvin. They assessed the mosquitoes in the lab. So what did they find? The team found that artificial light was a stronger inhibitor of mosquito dormancy than urban temperatures, especially in September. In fact, they found that artificial light overrode the effect of temperatures entirely, as lit mosquitoes showed no relationship between temperature and dormancy. Meanwhile, without the light, the mosquitoes entered into dormancy with dropping temperatures. This effect continued through October, indicating that 59% of the lit mosquitoes remained reproductively active. Meanwhile, the dark mosquitoes were 100% in dormancy during October. And it gets worse. These overactive lit mosquitoes leveled up in September, taking chunks of flesh out at a rate of 70% versus 37% for those living in dark environments. By the time that October rolled through, the number dropped to 29% for the lit mosquitoes, which remained obviously higher than that from the dark ones who were busy snoozing at that time. So when we talk about, your neighborhood brightness, it doesn't get much better of a study than here. We have a true insect that people detest, and lights are making them stay out more and stay more active and reproductively active.
Right. My favorite mosquito is a dormant mosquito. And the more dormancy, the better. I can see the relationship there. You're going to wake these mosquitoes up. You're going to prevent them from going into their dormant phase. I didn't even know mosquitoes had a dormant phase. None of the ones around my house seem to, but I'm glad they do.
So am I.
The longer they stay asleep, the less they'll be biting. Absolutely. So that's a great result to know about and to explain to people, because I think it connects to everybody's lived experience.
Yeah, we've all had that moment where they just don't let you go. All right. Well, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you. You guys are a great set of guests. I really appreciate you guys spending your time with me today. I want to thank Ted Blank, Amy Oliver, Michael Calhoun. Thank you guys so much. I want to also thank you, the listener, for staying with us today. This episode of Light Pollution News was recorded on June 21st, 2026. Caden Bauman is at the helm of the show's audio production. We have Laura Taylor and Emily Byers. Thank you guys for volunteering in the social media cause. I am Bill McGinney, reminding you to only shine the light where it's needed. Have a great August, friends.